Shalom, shalom. Welcome to the MTOI weekly Tuesday night Torah study. I will be your host this evening, David Balatrice, as we finish up the book of Vayechi, the book of Genesis. Amen. What a journey it's been for the nation of Israel in the book. Well, not quite the nation yet, but the beginnings of such with our forefathers, and definitely has been a journey for us as well. So if you're new here, we welcome you, and if you're not new, we welcome you back. And what we do here is we will read the Torah portion, and then we will discuss the Torah portion, finding the aspects of our halacha, our walk, in the Torah portion, as well as finding our Messiah in the Torah portion, and seeing all of the signs pointing to him and our garment preparation to the wedding day. So what we start with, customarily, is prayer requests and praise reports. So if you have a prayer or a praise, or both, either spoken or unspoken, feel free to enter it into the chat box, or simply raise your hand, and we will allow you to share what you have to share for the group. No obligation whatsoever, but we'd like to give this opportunity, since the group met last time, to update, because we know that a lot can happen in a day or two. So go right ahead. I will start on behalf of Travis. You commented on the MTOI Facebook group link to the Torah study, saying that they're still dealing with the passing of his mother, which happened actually a week ago today. He gave us word during the Torah study, and continued prayers for his family would be appreciated, especially his father, and travel prayers as they head back home. So Arthur and Linda, Nekonechny, Manitoba, 2 provinces over. Please pray for Linda. She has vertigo issues and is frequently dizzy. Amen, will do. Greetings to you both. Yep, sure thing, Randy. Shamash Robert is quick on the trigger to let people into the room. He will get you in no time. Mary Wallen, with 17 and a half weeks to Pesach. Unspoken, please. Beth Smith, praise my husband Ellis. Finally saw a therapist to deal with his depression, and he felt it went well. Prayer that further visits to the therapist and recommended psychiatrist continue to benefit him. Amen. Professionals are there for a reason. Rabbi Tom says, still in nursing home. Prayers to get out soon. Lots of exclamations. Amen. Praying for freedom. Sarah Beth. The Waffle family. Prayer. Evelyn and Evan will be traveling from Cal this Saturday. It's California. 7 o'clock to fly here for the winter break. Prayers for safe travels for them to here and back. Also prayers for work matters for Stephen. Earl from Lethbridge. Prayer for my adult children to find Torah and Abba. Prayer for wisdom and guidance to confirm business change, please. I have unspokens from Laura in Oregon and Alicia and Matthew Cooper. Diane in Oregon, I am requesting prayers for a job that just opened up. That is exactly what I wish to be doing. Gets me out from under the Catholic organization I have been working, and the added bonus of a 30% discount towards my daughter's college tuition. Wow. What an opportunity. Definitely pray for favor and Abba's will to be done in that situation. Michelle Voorhees, prayer for my father. He will be having eye surgery, and prays that he's able to have the surgery. Also for my family, unspoken. A great point, Michelle. So many times we have both a prayer and a praise, and a praise that we have a door opened, and then prayers that we can walk through that door, whether that's a surgery, whether that's a job, whatever the situation is. So it's amazing to see the deliverance, to see the just abundant love and mercy from our Elohim, that he opens the door and then still requires us to rely on him to go through that. So thank you for bringing that up. I think it is a beautiful, beautiful picture there, just in that very sentence. Unspoken from Lorraine. Hoffman family, prayer for a trip to France tomorrow. Awesome. We'll be there for 2 weeks and for safe travels. Thank you. Fantastic. Janice in Orlando, praise for several job offers I have received. Praise for the odd jobs that are bringing in a little money. Prayer for Yahweh's direction and what job he has planned for me. I want his eyes and heart, not mine. Amen. With his eyes and with his heart, we will truly see. Crystal McGee, buying our house fell through, so we need to make a plan from here. I think this is an opportunity to move away. My husband doesn't. My prayer is that we end up where we're supposed to, as opposed to forcing what we want to happen. Amen. Definitely as part of our local congregation, we're there to support and assist. Definitely keep you in prayer here locally. Red family, praise Yah, provided all our needs for a house in Virginia to sell, closing on the 20th. Awesome. Praise on Friday that Maurice and I will be celebrating 12 years married. It's been a blessing. Prayer for healing in the family, also praise for all my sisters in Yah and the love they show in different ways. We are grateful for this family. Santi Lee. So grateful for this family. Sorry, I didn't see the so. Santi Lee in Ontario. My children need to meet Father personally. My website preparation and business development. Reconciliation with family members and believers due to different views of the Bible. Claudia, please continue praying to my father's skin issues to be healed and unspoken for me. Thanks. Tom and Carmen Sardo. Praise report. Neighbors helping with a small roof repair and with my small dog's minor surgery. Candace, prayer request. My friend, Heather Berger, is having eye surgery due to the muscles in her eyes. She's having the surgery on Friday. Pray for successful surgery and for her problems to be fixed. Okay. Still quite a few operations and surgeries going on. Pray for successful operations in all of them. Let the report be given to our Elohim and him alone. Rick Berry, prayer that Abba would open my good friend George's eyes to see, his ears to hear, his heart to receive and follow Yeshua and walking out Torah. He is dealing with major health issues. Okay. Selena, tried to add lettuce back in my diet. After eliminating it, didn't go well. I've had a horrible migraine, been in bed all day, unable to homeschool the kids. Thankful my mom could help me. Okay, well, hopefully you feel better. Carrie Geffhart, prayers for my daughter. She's been suffering from vertigo since last week. Prayers for travel mercies for me and my son when we travel down to stay with the Huertas for Shabbat and New Year's. Praise for the Mishpacha who opened their doors. Travel mercies for me and my son when we travel down to stay with the Huertas for Shabbat and New Year's. Praise for the Mishpacha who opened their doors for visitors. Amen. It's the hospitality all the way back to Abraham, forefather, faith. Linda, West Palm Beach, Florida, praises Yah that my family are getting eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to receive and understand. Amen. Okay, seems to be some connection issues. Hopefully that works out. Praise Yah for the technology to do this. Just to think about the early Kachal, they relied on face-to-face and letters and messengers and changed the course of human history. So awesome to see that, and praise Yah for the technology for us to continue that. Spread the word. Leanne, praise report and thanks for prayers for best friend's father who suffered a heart attack Sunday and came through cardiac surgery well today. Al and Jeannie, prayer request that we're able to fix some car issues we've been having and for wisdom to know how to do it. Thank you. Absolutely, you're welcome. George and Isabel, praise Yah for so many miracles in our life lately. Amen. Small and great, he is there. John, Robin, and Tia, Rabbi Steve, not sure exactly, but he asked me to help him out, just to preserve and prevent coughing as they get to the bottom of what's going on. So I'm not sure exactly where he is at this very moment, but here to help. That's all that matters. Tommy, please pray for me this week as I have to have the difficult conversation with my extended family about how we will no longer be a part of any Christmas gathering. Amen. Definitely can be a difficult conversation, but be strong and courageous and strong and gentle. Lorraine, praise Yah for my sisters on Marco Polo. Loretta, prayers for obedience and trust in the Lord. Amen. Love how Rav Shaul, or beloved brother Paul, puts it in his writings, belief, obedience. Sums it up quite nicely. Robin in Pittsburgh, what's Marco Polo? It's a video messenger app. You can reach out to us or to MTOI directly for more information if you're interested in joining. Reddy Gonzalez, prayer request for my uncle. He has stage 4 cancer all over his stomach, messed up liver, and they won't be doing chemotherapy because of an infection in his heart. A lot. W says, hi, this is Shira. W is a typo, but I don't know how to correct it. For everyone, just FYI, if you go to the top right where it says attendees, and you see this little drop-down menu. If you click on that, the third option from the bottom says edit my info, and you'll be able to change your name and also add location, or someone put 17 and a half weeks to Pesach. Jane says, praise, no Christmas tree in my house this year. Family very supportive. Amen. Awesome. Yes, exactly what Terry's saying. Go to the upper right corner where it says attendees and choose the drop-down list. Awesome. All right. See a couple other people typing, so give it another bit of time to wrap up the praises and the prayers. Prayers for Kristen, says Shamash Robert. She's competed against one other employee, for the position of manager. See praise from Nate Taylor. Praise Yah, says Claudia, for my health and all provisions.
Alice, she's not on.
Okay. Still a couple more to go, and then we will ask one of the men to open us up in prayer. Not quite yet. Still see multiple attendees typing.
Yeah.
A friendly reminder to mute your mic. Mute your mic. In the meantime, praise report from Nate says we moved into our new house. Prayers for upgrade of electronics. Awesome. Shalom from Shira. My mom is on her final stretch. 100 years old. Not or speaking understandably and sleeping nearly 24/7. Praise for Father's mercy. Santa Lee, prayers for Rabbi Steve's cough will go away. Robin says, praise Yah for opening my eyes. We pray my family will receive it when I tell them. Healing for a sister who cannot talk. Okay, well, again, if there's some last ones, that is okay. There's no extra power having them be read out loud. So at this time, ask one of the men to raise their hand and to open us up in prayer. Lift all of these praises, all of these prayers, and also to open up the study as we go into the word of our set-apart living Elohim.
Can everybody hear me? All right. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you praising your name, thanking you so much for allowing us to gather together here tonight to study your Torah. We pray that you just fill us with understanding of your word, Father. Father, we also ask that we want to lift up prayers to you. Father, there are many needs out there for healing, for health, for comfort, financial. All these things are provided for by you, Father. Everything that comes to us comes from you, and we just want to thank you for it and lift up praises to you. And we come before you in the name and authority of your Son, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Nolan. Everything that we have is from our Father, including our Messiah, our Master, Yeshua. So thank you for beautiful prayer lifted up. We will continue now as we will start with the reading of the Torah portion. And what we have tonight is Parsha Vayechi. Vayechi, the final portion in the book of Bereshit, the book of Exodus. So what we usually do, just, for no other reason than to put it in context and see the flow of the story, the flow of the portions. What does Vayechi mean? Oh, you guys are a step ahead. Awesome. He lived, and he lived. Vayechi, he lived. That is absolutely correct. We see there in the word Vayechi the word or the root that can also be with chai, which means life. And we say lechaim, to life. It's right there in the same root. Vayechi, he lived. Okay, so we have tonight 6 readers. So if you would like to read, please raise your hand. For brothers and sisters, fellow sons and daughters of Elohim. Did I say Exodus? Maybe I did. I'm already ready to start the next book, but I said Bereshit, which means Genesis, so maybe I said Exodus in English. But you understand where we are. So we have 6 readers tonight. I see more than 6, which is always good, just in case of any audio or technical issues. So what we'll do is call each reader up with a traditional blessing. And just to recap, if you're new or you joined us, we will read the Torah portion, and then we will have some brief announcements from Shema Schwaber, and then we will discuss the Torah portion in a midrash format. Everyone contributing, and it's really a blessing. That's what makes these. It's not a teaching. It is a collaborative environment, and really, the comments from you all really make it what it is. So thank you in advance. So I'll call up the reader with the traditional prayer, and then you will read. So first up, we have Brother Chuck, Minneapolis, Minnesota. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he blessed Chuck, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah, and the set apart one, bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Chuck, you will start us off. Verse 28 of Chuck, you there? Okay. I don't even see him. See him in the room. All right, well, Chuck, you can always raise your hand, but that's exactly why we have more readers.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Sound loud and clear.
Okay. 47:28. And Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim 17 years. So the length of Yaakov's life was 147 years. And the time for Israel to die drew near. And he called his son Joseph and said to him, "Now if I have found favor in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh and show loving commitment and truth to me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim. But I shall live with my fathers, and you shall take me up out of Mitzrayim and bury me in their burial place." And he said, "I do as you have said." And he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him, and Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed. And after these events came to be that it was said to Joseph, "See, your father is sick." And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Yaakov was told, "See, your son, Joseph is coming to you." And Israel strengthened himself and sat up on the bed. Yaakov said to Joseph, "El Shaddai appeared before me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said to me, 'See, I am making you fruitful, and shall increase you, and make of you an assembly of peoples, and give this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession.' And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim before I came to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours. And let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And I, when I came from Padan, Rahel that died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath. And I buried her on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, "Who are these?" And Joseph said to his father, They are my sons, whom Elohim hath given me in this place.
Amen. Amen. Chuck? After you're done, well, you already have your hand down, but that's a good example to everybody else. After you're done reading, go ahead and lower your hand and mute your mic. The next person can be called up. That person will be Steve Waffle. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May you bless Steve, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah, and has set apart one. Bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Steve. Verses 10 to 22 in chapter.
All right. 22, okay, to the end. Alrighty. And my eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he was unable to see. And he drew them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has also shown me your seed. So Joseph brought them from between his knees, and bowed down on his face to the earth. And Joseph took them. Ephraim was his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh was with his left hand towards Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his hand, and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, concisely directing his hand, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, Ephraim, before who my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the Elohim who has fed me all the life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil.
You've got mail.
Sorry about that. And use, and let my name be called up. Why am I having? And let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them increase and to a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took the hand of his father's hand to remove it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also become a younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is also to become the completeness of the nations. And he blessed them on that day, saying, In you Israel shall be blessed, saying, Elohim made you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh, and Israel said to Joseph, See, I am dying, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I have given you one portion above your brothers, which I take from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Steve. And no need for apology, Chuck. You did great. And a great example. Your hand was still up from the request for the opening prayer. So thank you for raising your hand, and thank you for lowering it as a good example to others. Next up, we have Earl. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Earl, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Earl. Now starting in chapter 49, verses 1 to 8.
And Jacob called his sons and said, Gather together, so that I declare you what is to befall you in the last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my power and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of exaltation and the excellency of power. Boiling like water, you do not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. You went up to my couch. Shimon and Levi are brothers, their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council, let my esteem not be united to their assembly, because they killed a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. You, Yehuda, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children's bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up. My son, he bowed down, as he crouched like a lion, and like a lion who does rouse him. The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor an inscriber from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of the peoples. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He has for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. Yissachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. And he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant. And he inclined his shoulder to bear a burden, and he became a subject to slave labor. Dan rightly rules his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its riders fall backward. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahweh.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Earl. And now we have Bob. Awesome. Back-to-back Canadians. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Bless Bob, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, you'll take us verses 19 to 33 in chapter 49.
Test. Gad, a raiding band, raids him, but he raids its heel. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of the sovereign. Naphtali is a deer let loose. He gives words of elegance. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, by a fountain. His branches run over a wall. And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one, of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the El of your father, who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors, up to the limit of the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke. This is what their father spoke to them, and he blessed them. He blessed them each one according to his own blessing. And he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people, burying with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron and the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. They buried Abraham and Sarah, his wife, and they buried Isaac and Rebekah, his wife, and there I buried Leah. The field purchased, and the cave which is in it, from the sons of Heth. And when Jacob ended commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into his bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bob. Next up, we have Brother Nolan. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he blessed Nolan, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Nolan, the last chapter in the book of Bereshit, book of Genesis, verses 1 to 13.
And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians. I see a low there. I'm going to check my mic. Is that better? All right, I'll start over. And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, for so are completed the days of embalming. And the Mitzrites wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying. Bury me in my burial site which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now, please let me go up and bury my father and return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mitzrayim, and all the house of Joseph, and his brothers, and his father's house. Only their little ones, and their flocks, and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land of the Canaanites saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. That is why its name was called Abel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Jordan. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them. For his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Nolan. Not quite yet, Carrie. We still have the end of chapter 50, verses 14 to 26. Final reader for Bereshit, for this year will be Rick Berry. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Rick, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay. Nowhere else to go, Rick.
Okay, mic check. And after he had buried his father, Yosef returned to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers, and all who went up with him to bury his father. And when Yosef's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Yosef hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him?" And they sent word to Yosef, saying, "Before your father died, he commanded, saying, 'This is what you are to say to Yosef. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the Elohim of your father.' And Yosef wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, 'See, we are your servants.' And Joseph said to them, 'Do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim? And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is to this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now do not fear, I provide for you and your little ones.' So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Yosef dwelt in Mitzrayim, he and his father's household. And Yosef lived 110 years. And Yosef saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Yosef's knees. And Yosef said to his brothers, 'I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov.' And Yosef made the children of Yisrael swear, saying, 'Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here.' And Yosef died, being 110 years old. And they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin.
Amen. Amen. Chazak, chazak, benit chazek. Be strong, and may we be strengthened. Amen. The book of Bereshit we have completed in the cycle. Of course, you can go back and read it whenever you want. So thank you to all the readers and all the listeners, as the listeners often and sometimes can pick up on something that the readers can't by reading it. And thank you to the readers for bringing the word to life, and as the word brings us to life. And thank you. And so chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. You can see several putting in there. And Carrie says, for real this time, there's no, right way. You can say it after every verse, so just to make sure I wasn't correcting you to say, oh, that's wrong. No, it's a traditional blessing said after every book, but you can, of course, say it after every verse. It is an encouragement in the word. So chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. And we'll say the traditional closing blessing. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life through Yeshua in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. The English translation of the blessing would be strong, and v'nit chazek, may we be strengthened, or may we take strength from you as the one reading. I can put that in there. Let's see Rabbi Tom putting it in there as well. Okay, well, before we get into the Midrash, again, thank you to everyone for joining us and for taking time out of your schedules. No better time than spending time with the Word, with our Messiah and His ways. So, Shamash Robert, pass the mic over to you. Any announcements on behalf of our Nasi, our Rabbi Steve, and
All right, thank you. Yep, the new buildings, renovations and stuff are going well, so everything's progressing along at a good pace. We're getting a few more people into positions that they need to be in so that we can get ready to move into this new year with a fuller staff than we've had before. But that's necessary to manage this building and keep a building up like this. So sorry, getting distracted here. Some of the things that we got going on, we will be having a new phone number that will be given out. Right now we're waiting because part of that remodel and renovations is updating the offices, getting the wiring and stuff updated in there and stuff like that. So we're not giving the phone number out until we actually can have the offices set up, because the signal that goes into the gym area, what used to be the gym that's now the main sanctuary, is not strong enough to carry those signals all the time. So there's always these little things you got to work through when you get to a new building. So bear with us as we go through that. And I will tell you this, I am getting over 50 calls a day. They usually come before I get to the office at the lunch hour in the Eastern Coast, and and after I leave the office. That's just when they come through. That's probably when people get their breaks. The reason I bring that up is just to say that be patient, and if you get a voicemail, leave a voicemail, because with over 50 calls a day coming in, if I don't get a voicemail, I figure then it wasn't that urgent. I'm going to return the calls to the ones who leave voicemails, because I can't flip through 8 calls when all 8 come in at one time. I can only go between like 2 or 3 at a time. So the phone just doesn't hold that many, because it's my cell phone is what I'm using to answer the old office phone as well as any calls that come in through the new office phone. So bear with us as we go through these growing pains, but they're good things. They're good growing pains because it means we're increasing in number. So yeah, Aaron, we do need a secretary. I haven't put the advertisement out for that yet because I don't have anywhere for them to work. Because that's one of the first offices that need to get done. So we actually have somewhere for them to work at right now. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to do. Of course, we got to praise that Rabbi Tom is back in Cleveland, and we'll be praying for his continued strengthening and healing as it goes on. Also, please remember Robertson Joanne, as she'll need her strength and stuff to be replenished. She's still got a boot on, and she's still going on. We have a contract from YMCA. The registration forms have not been completed. I've gotten 2 calls today for schedules. Schedules don't come out that fast. We're going to get the registration form first, and then we'll have to work on the schedules. But we will be going to the YMCA, so you know where it's at and you know where that is. So if there's anything else that I need to cover, just throw it out there at me and I'll be glad to cover it. But I think that pretty much covers the main part that we need to get. Yeah, and like I said, do be patient and leave messages if you're calling, because right now I've got several phones coming to me, and there's a lot of calls coming in. Got a lot of work going on in this building, but it's coming together nicely. So appreciate your prayers and appreciate everybody who is being patient and who is calling in. with encouragement, because especially if you get a chance to speak to Rabbi Steve, make sure you let him know you're praying for him.
Thank you, Shamash Robert.
I'm sorry.
And I just put it in.
Yeah.
As well.
I saw that. I'm sorry. I had my note over here. All meetings, leadership meetings, South Africa, the Leadership Council, and the General Session are all moved to this coming Sunday. South Africa is at 10 Eastern Time. Leadership is at noon Eastern Time, and the 8 p.m. is the General Session, as David has thrown up there. So yeah, thanks. I knew there was something else. That's why I was talking so long.
That's teamwork. Do it together, working together to serve the body. So thank you for that. So now we will go a good about an hour to cover last portion in the book of Bereshit. Tommy, I see your hand up. Is that for the Midrash? Is that something else? Is that from reading? Go right ahead if you... Oh, okay, see the hand down? I see another hand. AJ, so again, before we go into this, I see some... No worries. It's easy to hit that button. Remember, we are looking at the Torah portion, looking at ourselves in it, and then looking at Messiah in it, because ultimately we know we need to transform into him. So see the aspects and the types and the shadows, the beautiful imagery of our Messiah, and also the united house of Yisrael that we see here today specifically, so just to keep that in mind. So yeah, if you have questions, comments, put them in the chat box or raise your hand, and then we will start. Beautiful thing is we really never know where this discussion will end up, and that's part of the fun. So let us.
All right. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? All right, cool. I had a question. So in Genesis 48, verse 19, the end of it, this is about the blessing that was given to Ephraim and not Menashe. But there's a sentence, and it says, "And yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed has become the completeness of the nations." I've never noticed this before. What does that mean, of the nations? I know it's obviously Gentiles, but like, what's the full understanding of his seed has become the completeness of the nations? Is there like an understanding or something known to Big Brother?
That's a great question. Anybody have any thoughts on that? We'll do that first. I have a specific verse that comes to mind from the Brit that connects to that. Let's just give somebody else a chance, see if there's any thoughts on AJ's question about the completeness of the nations and what that could be referring to. Ryan and Jamie, is that Romans 11:25? That's the verse I had. He gets the completeness to it, not just the nations. So this is Romans 11:25. So he gets the complete, not the nations. Well, nations here referring to the Goyim, the Amim, the nations of the world. And so we can see here through the birthright, we can see here through the imagery of the multitude of Ephraim's birthright, of the completeness of the nations coming in to then join. And we see here as also the connection to this 2 sticks in Ezekiel 37. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but the nations being those grafting in, choosing to graft in through belief in Yeshua Messiah, and then observing and keeping the commandments, the instructions, to then ultimately fulfill and come together as one nation, as we are to be. So I'll just read Romans 25 quickly. 11:25, that is. I think it's a really beautiful imagery. We see a lot of this imagery here. Judah with the scepter, and we have the multitude being talked about. It says, "For I do not wish you to be ignorant of this secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardening has come over Israel until the completeness of the nations has come in." And in the ISR, there's actually a note that brings us back to 48:19. So I'm not sure if that answers. I mean, there's so much, of course, we can discuss here in terms of the actual dispersion and the scattering in the nations and the actual lineage. But I think an important kind of overview to focus on is the aspect of the multitude then being broadcast to all to then have the opportunity to then graft in as one and reunite. So we see here some comments until the fullness of the Gentiles. Get the completeness part, it's not the nations. That was AJ's follow-up comment here. Just scrolling up. You will join the nations and you as one. Crystal. Okay, isn't Ephraim the one that gets dispersed into the nations? That's correct. Earl says, my guess Joseph's wife was Mitzrayim. Maybe not. Yes, his wife was from Mitzrayim. We covered that last portion. But we see here with Ephraim and Manasseh that the influence was clearly through Yosef and his adherence to Elohim. Okay, does completeness, and I'm saving other questions and comments, so don't worry. We'll cover this because this is a very big topic. Does completeness mean filled up to overflowing? Sure. I mean, I think, does anybody have any comments on what they think completeness? I mean, completeness can be all filled to overflowing. The fulfillment of, fullness of integrity, everyone. Yachad, together, my wife says. So Aaron says the nations include both the scattered, assimilated northern tribes, and the foreigners that would join themselves to them. Correct. Right, we have the dispersion, which is part of the master's plan. So then in that scattering, in that dispersion, those that would then hear the good news preached, the word of Elohim, the path of Teshuvah through Yeshua, and restoration to the united house, hearing that to then join themselves, that could be also the completeness of it, and coming in for those choosing. Santity says Jeremiah 31:27 as well. Oh, there's immense, number of verses, covering the two sticks. This was actually the Haftorah last week. Scroll up. And yes, AJ just checking for you. So in the Hebrew it says Hagoyim. So we know that the Goyim there is the nations, the Gentiles. So we see this even from the promise made to Abraham. You will be father of many nations, of many Gentiles. So his promise, and that promise only achieved through this dispersion, through the will of Yah, to then be able to have people join it. Rick Berry says, I always understood that Yaakov was in fact Israel. 48:5, Yaakov knows the names of Yosef's two sons. Then in 48:8, Israel asks Yosef their names. Okay, we can go to that. So 48:5 and 8 says, now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And then in verse 8 he says, and who are these? Okay, well, you are correct that Yaakov is in fact Israel. And Steve, I still see your hand raised. Just covering these. Anybody have any thoughts on that? On maybe why he's asking, the difference of those three verses? Says he's good, no rush. Okay, cool. Any thoughts on that? His eyes were dim. Could be part of it. Could be another aspect similar to the blessing given to him. He could have known the names but not able to see them. He can't see too good. think they're all possibilities. I don't know if anybody has anything else. I don't know. I mean, I think they're all good possibilities. We know this is, in fact, Yaakov, the same person in those 3 verses. But it is possible that he knows the names and then doesn't know, maybe who they are exactly. To allow Yosef to introduce them properly. Yeah, I think it's all possibility. Again, there's so many things we can glean, so many different ways we can glean from Scripture. It definitely stuck out to me when I was reading it earlier. Some, of course, interesting commentaries out there. Rashi, one of them. I'm not saying recommending that, but it is an interesting one. And again, this is a commentary, just like what we're providing here is a commentary. Okay, let's see. Some questions. Okay. So Steve said, back to the completeness would be, as is was said, all whom here would come and complete what he had planned. That's exactly what we said, correct. Okay, let me just scroll up. Okay, let me just go in order 48 first. We'll go there. So 48:22, and I'm still saving your questions, which I took from the hand of the Amorite. This is David and Amy. So possibly there referring to Esau. There, the ways of the Amorite. Okay, a lot going on, so just please be patient. Okay, David and Amy says the Greek equivalent of pleru, Yeshua fulfilled, your joy may be complete. Right, fulfilled too, not completed. Obviously, we are waiting for the completeness of the nations to come in. Complete in the fulfillment of all. It's a good point there. Okay, yep. Hoffman family, we'll get to chapter 50. We like to usually go in order the chapters just to keep it orderly. Okay. Okay, Beth Smith, it seems to me that in verse 3 or 4 he said El Shaddai came to him and said, so maybe he knew the names but had never met the children, so he couldn't put a face to the name. Yeah, I think there's a good flow there as well. Maybe he hadn't been introduced, and Yosef hadn't actually produced them like that. Very, very possible, especially with the fact that Yaakov had just been reunited and just came, and Yosef's sons were already born, so thank you for that. I think that's a great point. Leanne, I find it interesting that while Yosef was not the firstborn and yet was blessed above his brothers, that his adherence to tradition made it difficult to accept his own father's decision to bless Ephraim against Joseph's wishes. Yeah, I mean, we all have to be mindful that adherence to tradition, adherence to practices, although we know that tradition is not inherently wrong, as long as we don't make it above Torah or use it as an excuse to break Torah and put it then on a pedestal above. But it is interesting. We can get caught in those traps, even in our own homes, or maybe we have a tradition, but just because it's not being done in that order. A great example of the chazak v'nit chazek earlier. Nothing wrong with saying that at any time. It's just traditionally you say it at any of the books. So I think it's a great point there, and that's why I wanted to make that clear, that just adhering to the tradition, but I think it was carried by saying that there was nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing at all. So great point, Leanne. Rick says perhaps it was because Yisrael wanted to see how Yosef would introduce them, because he knew which one he would bless first. That's possible. Again, all of them are great possibilities. We've got various levels of the fact that he hadn't met them, and then more of the prophetic aspect of the blessings and the birthright. Maybe his eyes being dim, connected to his previous blessing from his father. I mean, so many beautiful layers. So I think you can take all of them and see how they intertwine. Okay, before the chat explodes again,
Okay.
which is great.
It's
It's awesome when you have a lot of questions. Steve, go ahead.
47:8.
And then we'll get to Bob and then go back to the chat.
Let me read what I have to write it down. Thanks for the patience, because sometimes my dyslexia, the words are just words and there's no meaning, so that's kind of go weird. Anyway, okay, at the end of his life, Israel, his concern was if he had found favor in his son's eyes by what he had done through his life, we would think. So my thinking is, how do we find this and take this towards us? So it would be, doesn't this go towards what our main concern should be on what we have done to find favor in our Father's eyes, as Abba's eyes, or maybe even our leadership or our brother, to show that we have been righteous? That our concern should be that we have done well and it's recognizable. So that would be what I saw in the beginning.
Amen. Thank you for that. Absolutely. So many components to that, and the requests, and that's of course the twofold of the righteousness that we are to display before our Heavenly Father, and then also the abundant love coming from Him that makes that walk possible. As Rabbi has said, when you come under the blood, now everything matters. Before, nothing mattered. You were dead in trespasses. We see that in the book of Ephesians. So absolutely, and it's a beautiful, beautiful connection there of coming and finding that favor. And it's also beautiful to see the Father, on His.
Yes, I'm going back to 48, 5, and 6. And the question, and now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim before I came to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring whom you shall bring forth after them are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. Why is he claiming these two boys? Is it a custom or a tradition?
It's a great question. Anybody have any thoughts on that? We see David and Amy saying adoption. Okay, let's run with this a little bit. And don't worry, everybody else, I have your questions copied to include them in the inheritance. Adoption, okay. That's all great thoughts, all right online. So we see a redemption process, an adoption process, especially because they were born in Mitzrayim. And so, yes, to include them in the inheritance, like Crystal said. We also know something from the Brit, the idea of adoption as sons of Elohim through Yeshua. So another type and shadow there. So I'll bring the verse that come to mind and I'll type it in. So we see here, a beautiful image of a grafting in, a changing their citizenship and an adoption process, possibly from, even though they were raised by Joseph, knowing him as a tzaddik, possible inclinations from Mitzrayim, and then including in them inheritance, so they're able to receive the promises as well. Yes, it's a change in citizenship. That's part of the adoption. Gentiles are adopted to Israelites too, exactly. Let's see here where is the verse. Anyone else have any thoughts on the adoption inheritance? So there's one in Ephesians 1, verse 5. Adoption as sons through Yeshua Messiah to himself according to the good pleasure of his desire being the Father in heaven. Just put that there. So, Crystal says, which makes sense why the nations come from them. Amen. Beautiful imagery here, even connecting back to AJ's question, the completeness of the nations, the adoption as sons, this inheritance. Yahweh would surely have moved directly on Yaakov to adopt the two boys, foreknowing that through them, especially Ephraim, the fullness of the nations would come to be Israel. Amen. And we see here at the end, we are finishing, I see a beautiful image of when it says these are the 12 tribes of Israel. It's a beautiful display of the completeness of the tribes. We are a 12-tribe bride for our master. Not one or two, not three, not four, but 12. And we can expand on this further. The idea of the 12-tribe reality. That's just the note that I made of it today. We see the completeness of the nations. We see in Ephraim inheriting the birthright, leads to Ezekiel 37. And actually, I just want to look at verse 16 of chapter 48. We'll just run with this for a little bit, and then we'll go back to some more specific questions, because I just think this is the main point that I wanted to kind of bring today. 16, it says, okay, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. Okay, so that verse right there. And so we're dealing with, we know, the adoption process, right, and the redemption, redeeming from, maybe if you were born in Mitzrayim, we'll look at Egypt as a spiritual Mitzrayim for all of us that we can relate to. Okay, and then being redeemed and grafted in. And verse 16, the root of the word for multitude is actually the root of the word fish. And so we see so many beautiful parallels in the Brit of increasing like fish in the sea. So think of that, we with the nations, with the completeness of the nations being increased as the fish in the sea. And then we see in Matthew 4:19, I'll put the verses in there, don't worry. The disciples of Yeshua himself will become fishers of men. So we're fishers of men. The men that have been increased as the fish in the sea, the multitude, the completeness of the nations through the scatterings of the plan of dispersion. And we also see then connected to that with this idea of the completeness is Matthew 13:47. The kingdom of heaven is like a net let down in the lake and caught all kinds of fish, but they don't keep everyone, do they? They throw out the bad fish. And they keep the good in the net, but the net overflowing. We could say the completeness of that net. Well, that previous verse was 48:16 for David and Amy. And so we see the multitude increasing to this beautiful imagery of the fish in the sea, and then the disciples of Yeshua, that we are, through following him, to be called to make disciples of the nations, to then become fishers of men, to be that light, to catch those fish, to show them what it's like to be in the fullness of Messiah and Torah, and then to come in. But we know with the parable of the kingdom that we also have to prepare our garments to then be considered a good fish to be kept. So I just wanted to bring that out. I thought, beautiful little image right there in verse 16 with the root of the word multitude being fish. See somebody put the sands of the sea. We also see in Genesis, they shall be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over all of the fish of the sea. So really, even from the beginning all the way to the end, We see, Jeremiah 16:16, Mark put, Yirmiyahu, fishers of men. We also have Ezekiel 47:10. Amen. Shir says John 21:11, Peter catches 150 large fish after Yeshua's resurrection. Isn't that a significant gematria regarding the nations? Number rings a bell, but I haven't done that individual study. If somebody else in the room would like to confirm if they've done that, or a quick Google search would do that, but don't want to be distracted from everything. Aaron says, yes, that connection is amazing. So yeah, and continuing even with in Mark 6:41, I know a lot of verses here, but I just wanted to complete this thought, and then we'll get back to the questions. With Yeshua taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, giving thanks, and becoming an increase, a multitude. So blessings and miracles performed by our Messiah to give thanks, to then spread to all, to feed the bread of life, the fish, sustenance of him himself, that we see coming back to this promise in Bereshit, all the way back to the beginning of Bereshit, the promise to Abraham to become a father of many nations. And exactly, thank you, David and Amy, that was my last verse here, that he ate fish after the resurrection with honey. Could be a beautiful image there with milk and honey, the land, the kingdom. Exactly, AJ, fish and honey, and the fish there. So we see a thread there. But again, in the important aspect, and kind of the connection overall, to kind of bring it out from just the imagery of the fish, would be also the idea of the completeness, right? That we are the grafting in. The bloodline does not matter. If you have a bloodline, okay, maybe there's a responsibility, as we see the 12 tribes, and then there's a question on that, had different roles to play. But that in the grafting in, the adoption, we'll bring it all the way back to that connection, the adoption of us as sons through Yeshua, all of us dead from our previous trespasses. And so Ephraim and Menashe, we see here a type and shadow of that, and also the fact that in the stick of Joseph, the hand of Ephraim in Ezekiel 37, reuniting with the stick of Judah. We also see here with the scepter. And also the birthright given to Ephraim, by Ephraim, he received the right hand blessing, as our Messiah, our Master Yeshua, received the right hand blessing and is sitting at the right hand of the Father. See some other wonderful comments here. Said, it's my understanding, says Tiffany, that loaves represent the 5 books of Torah and the fish are the 2 kingdoms. I think that's a beautiful image. Also fivefold ministry there, the 5 aspects of the administration of Messiah. We have 2 houses, we have the 2 great commands. I mean, there's so many beautiful layers. So thank you, Tiffany, for bringing that. Fish and honey, AJ says, that's an actual meal they would eat. Well, there is a verse, I think it's in John, referring to kind of the use of fish at that time. It wasn't fish and honey in that particular verse, but I don't know the historical aspect of that, but I wouldn't put it beyond the Middle Eastern cuisine at that time. Fish and honey, nations returning to the Torah covenant. Amen. So we see just a wonderful picture here, really focusing on that we have been adopted. We have been adopted, and we are now, through, the belief, obedience, as Paul talks about, sons of the living Elohim. Okay, let's go back to some questions. Let's have a note. Find it interesting in 48, that Rachel is buried in Bethlehem, but later we are told that Leah is buried in the family tomb with the patriarchs, matriarchs, and that Israel chose to be buried with Leah. Well, Rachel, she died on the way. It is interesting. And someone else had a question, why was it so important from Candace for Israel to be buried where his fathers were buried? Anybody have thoughts on that? Why he wanted to be buried with his fathers from the cave of Machpelah. In the meantime, some comments. Santi Lee says, Menashe had no jealousy or argument when his grandfather chose his younger brother over him. Joseph might have trained them to love each other well. Amen. That's a great point. We see also Yosef repeating with his brothers, do not quarrel along the way, do not quarrel. So definitely Yosef was a man to keep peace, and so definitely could apply to his house as well. And a good hinting at the Brit as well with the enmity. And
check, test. Okay. All right. So just wanted to share a little bit because the question was asked about the wanting to be buried with his fathers. Why would that be so important? And it's similar. Some of the reasoning there, I can't claim to know all of it, but some of the reasoning there is the same reason why the Mount of Olives is pretty much the most popular burial site for Jews of antiquity. And what it has to do with is the way that they envisioned the resurrection occurring. And they wanted to be as many of them as possible in the same place. And so the idea of being at the Mount of Olives was, of course, because of their understanding about that being where Yah himself is when he's defending Yerushalayim from the nations at the end of things, at the end of this current age. And so they had this idea that that would be a wonderful place to wake up in the resurrection at that time, in that place, to see that occurring. Okay? And so that became a very, very popular place to be buried, the Mount of Olives. So before the prophets had revealed that to be a location, the idea previous to that was it's just important to have as many of us as possible just be together. And so we have this importance of this traditional burial site, even though they didn't have the kinds of superstitions about death and about burial sites and those kinds of things that a lot of these pagan cultures have and that you might be familiar with. Nevertheless, it was still important to them where to be buried because of the idea of the resurrection. So just wanted to share about that.
Thank you, Raymond. And we see, someone said maybe importance of having all three fathers in one place. And Raymond brought that beautifully to life. It's a good word there, thank you. And Sue added that Abraham had bought that piece of land, showing title to the whole land eventually. And we remember discussing that earlier, that Abraham insisted on paying for this, right? And so we see this leading the actions, right? The consequences going through generations that Yaakov could go back to the family tomb. Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. And so, purchased the land, correct? Okay. Go back to some questions. I see someone saying, observation, interesting that Joseph's sons were the only strifeless brothers we read about. Amen. Definitely interesting indeed. And goes back to Joseph's heart and what he was wanting to instill into his family. And we see that heart. Joseph as a type and shadow of our Messiah, that the heart, the true heart that we are called to have and called to circumcise ourselves as we prepare our garments. Okay, and then just a final note on 48. We'll go into 49. We're doing great on time. Someone said, man's firstborn, and this is related to the strife. Man's firstborn not equal to Yah's firstborn, referring to, that we could have plans. We could have plans, but it is Elohim that ultimately makes the final call. His will, achieved in ways that we, and I know we covered this earlier together, that the appearances could be deceiving in our human minds. Very narrow. We know more by the day, knowing that we know less by the day. And it's very difficult for us in our own lives, just in this domain that we're living in, to understand things correctly. So very hard to look back and see what was happening, but ultimately we see the thread, the will of Yah that stands above all. So absolutely, not always looks what it. No, appearances can be deceiving. That's what my tongue was trying to say. Observation about Yisrael and how every time he traveled in life and after death, Yah provided travel arrangements. Amen. I really enjoy that. Who made that comment? That was David and Amy. Yeah, I like that idea of travel arrangements. And so I think that's also an element to the idea of travel in our own lives, both physical, as we hope for prayer to then be brought from one place to the next, also for jobs, for health, the idea of deliverance, this idea of travel from getting to one place to the other. We see this in the coming to the land. It is a journey. They are traveling, and we are traveling on that journey as well. So I think it's a great comparison that we are also to make travel arrangements for ourselves and to prepare our garments and to prepare our heart and to write that Torah on our heart, because that is the ultimate travel arrangement. That is where the renewed covenant, the new covenant, will be written and instilled. And so beautiful. I think that's amazing. We know that Yah always provides, yet we also have to look at arranging some aspect that we are in control of. Okay, 49. Let's see. Our plans are like lots cast sometimes. Amen. Carrie adds, after what Yosef went through with his brothers, he may wanted to guarantee that his children wouldn't be to say that way with each other. Someone put a comment about generational curses. We can end them, right? This idea of inheriting poor, sinful, evil, foolish behavior. And so, we can evaluate, we can identify, and then we can say no more. This doesn't continue, because like anything, right? Think about a gossip story. It only continues when some person continues it, right? Think about an illness, right? Rabbi mentioned, hey, I appreciated the people staying home last week because it can be contagious. So can foolish behavior. And so we put to an end to it. It doesn't have to continue. Okay. So in 49, there's a question. This is from Crystal. Verses 5 and 6. Why does he say, let Levi, not my being, enter their council? It says, Shimon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Okay, anyone have a comment about that? About why he's referring to instruments or weapons of violence and not entering council? Maybe something that happened recently in the last couple of portions. Shechem. Yeah, that is definitely the predominant explanation. Their actions with their sister and going in and murdering, which was definitely wrong. So they were weapons of violence. So we see here even connected to Psalm 1, right? Not sitting in the council of the scoffers. Also this idea of the council. And so we must stay in the right council, keep the right company, and also the right counsel inside can prevent actions like these brothers that then resulted in that comment. Okay? Hope that answers your question. Crystal? We see a question here from Carrie. I have a question about verse 10. I use this verse when people are being anti-Semitic about Jews. I was told this was fulfilled when Yeshua came, Moshe being the lawgiver. It's not how Rabbi has explained it. I take it that Yehuda still is the lawgiver. Okay, this is verse 10. The scepter shall not depart. Does anyone have any comments on that? So we continue in chapter 49. Well, Crystal, yes. I mean, it says, "Let my being not enter their counsel." Necessarily, they're not entering his counsel. We also see a redemption of them later, and we see the blessing. Okay, so anyone about verse 10 with the scepter? So this aspect is, Judah's keeping the authority, right? We see the authority, the instruction, whereas Ephraim has this idea of the birthright of the multitude that we were talking about before. Oh, yes. Yes, okay. Yes, law and truth for verse 10. Yes, they are to hold the law and the truth. Being responsible for that instruction. We do understand that they have a role to play in that instruction, and that is to not be omitted. We know that Yeshua himself came from Judah, the ultimate lawgiver, hinting at the millennial reign. So that's how rabbis explain it. Actually, if you go to, I think, last year's Torah portion, explaining Judah keeping the scepter, the authority, the instruction. That's why we look to Big Brother on many things. We don't swing into Judaism and take everything that they've done and added and built, but on certain aspects they still have the authority in that aspect of the instruction. Okay, we have some other couple questions. Verse 49, someone asked about the last days of Revelation. Is that a stretch? I don't think it's necessarily a stretch. I think there's definitely an aspect, last days, looking at our reunification as a nation of the bride, represented by all 12 tribes. Grafting in the completeness, Ezekiel 37. So I don't think that is a stretch. That definitely is something that triggered in my brain earlier today. And I think someone else said, connection of the blessings in chapter 49 to Revelation chapter 7. Just pull that, verses, you say 4 and 8. It says, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Yehuda, 12,000, and it goes through all the tribes. So yeah, I think there's, of course, you're seeing that, making that connection. The Ruach is doing that work, and I think there's definitely a connection there with the blessings, and we know, just as we've been talking about adoption and the completeness, that is not going to be one tribe there at the end. It's going to be all 12. That is the plan. That is the purpose. Through that purpose, people who were not born into this, had no idea, are able to, gather and collect those tribes. And again, as we see in the fish with the net, the kingdom of heaven, that we need to be the good fish to be able to be kept in that remnant. So there's definitely a qualification elimination process that we know and we have addressed many times. Okay. Santi adds in verse 10 that Yeshua's priesthood replacing Levitical priesthood. I would recommend Rabbi Steve's in Focus called A Change in the Law there. It's addressing the book of Hebrews and the aspect of Yeshua's priesthood being valid, of course, for the people that were looking and relying on the Levitical priesthood. It's the idea of the Melchizedek, okay? So we see here, Millie says, we have trouble understanding what took place these centuries ago because we live in a society that has been influenced by Greek thinking and not Hebrew. Amen. We are looking for one or the other. We're looking for, a very dichotomous approach. We know that Scripture is precept upon precept. It is built and structured and layered beautifully. And so, if we think Greek and trying to interpret our Elohim as Greek, It's not the way he exists. It's not the way he presents himself in the Word. Okay, a couple other questions. We see in 49 verses 22 to 24. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall. Someone asks, is this a reference to Yeshua? I think absolutely. There's another Romans connection there, Romans 11. The grafting in. And we see there even the fulfillment, or not fulfillment, another instance of verse 10 with the scepter, right, the grafting in, and Paul warning not to boast against the original branches, because if Elohim was able to cut them off, he'd be able to cut you off as well. So verse 22 there, definitely. Okay, hold on, scroll up. Ginny says, Crystal, the Levites weren't assigned the task of priest by Joseph. They were given that responsibility later with Moses. Okay, that's a great point. Okay, and then, so we scroll up. We said, Bob Mivan, there are many instances in the Bible of the firstborn not getting the firstborn blessing. Just a reminder that we should not take our inheritance for granted. Exactly. That we have been called, and we know, we see in the Brit, that we must walk worthily of the calling of which we've been called to. That is, not taking the inheritance for granted, not taking this gift that has been provided to us freely for granted, as we know. That what we do with the gift now, with our eyes and ears and heart opened, that is the worthy walk. So thank you again, and we see that throughout, this idea of adoption and coming in and grafting in, that we have to walk worthily and well-pleasing to the Master. Okay, a lot of continued talk about the council, and good comment here by Arthur and Linda. Just a thought, Yaakov is speaking, let my being not enter their council. Could it mean that Yaakov wants no part of what Shimon and Levi they do? Very possible. We know, again, this ties back to Shechem and what he had to do and the effect on him in that situation. Mark says, verses 10 and 24, are these verses the foundation of the concept of Messiah ben David and Messiah ben Yosef? I think it's very possible. The two concepts of the two messiahs often presented by Brother Jua. I mean, not two messiahs, two different people, but the fulfillment of the Messiah ben David had not yet come, so it's a possible link there. Again, there's so many layers, and I'm not just using this as a cop-out, but there's something that brings that, or you ask the question, there's something there, right? I'm not saying that it's automatically correct, and this is why we have this discussion, and then to be able to discuss in the right environments and discipleship formats to discuss and talk and till the soil. And there's so many beautiful connections in this last chapter. Okay, so we're finishing. We're almost about 10 minutes left. I still have some questions in the blessings. So we have Hoffman said, would you please expand on the blessings given to each of the 12 sons? It is a bit hard to understand the blessing. Okay, so with the blessings, and something that I really loved from Rabbi Tom from his teaching and leading of the Torah study 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, that when the tribes are together in unity, we receive the blessings. Only when we receive unity do we receive the blessings. So possible here in terms of each one, there's so much that can be gleaned, again, from every single one in terms of what they mean, the fulfillment of that, their behavior in the past, also in the future, but something that I'd like to share with the 12 tribes, and maybe this will link to the blessings, and the role of each one. We know that in Hebrew, the meanings of both the word and also the representation of the letters, provides a lot of context, a lot of imagery. But just going to sum up quickly, and I think hopefully this will give some insight. And again, it's not the affirmative truth by any means. That's what I'm holding in my hand. But that the 12 tribes, if you look at the meaning of each one, they actually combine for a beautiful story. From Yehuda to Reuben to Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin, the meanings, if you kind of stack them in that order, you could say, I will praise Yah, for he has looked on my affliction and granted good fortune. Happy am I, because my wrestling has made me forget all my toil. Elohim hears me and has joined a husband to me. He has purchased me a dwelling. Elohim will add to me the son of his right hand. It's a beautiful image there. The 12 tribes coming together that we need to reunite. We need to become that 12-tribe bride, because that is the promise, that is the blessing. And so it is a beautiful, beautiful picture there in verse 49. And then also even regarding, and we see Raymond here saying, clearing up, Shimon and Levi are in shame and disrepute at this point. Actually, Levi's status as a tribe remains quite low until they redeem themselves at the incident of the golden calf. Yes, thank you. That is the redemption I was referring to. Thank you for spelling that out. And just and then a parallel there to the instrument of violence, and then we also see later in the Brit that we are to be instruments of righteousness. So maybe just a quick food for thought, in our actions, in our walk, internally, towards our Elohim, towards each other, our wives, our husbands, our children, our friends, our coworkers, are we weapons of violence or instruments of righteousness? Very, very big difference. Light and darkness contrasted. Okay, go up. David, Amy, what the wives said when naming the sons. You mean in terms of the total aspect of that? Well, we see just kind of Yehuda means now I will praise Yah. Reuben, surely Yah has looked upon my affliction. Gad, what good fortune. Asher, happy am I. Naphtali, with great wrestlings have I wrestled. Manasseh, Elohim has made me forget all my toil. Simeon, Yah has heard that I was hated. Levi, my husband, has been joined to me. Issachar, Elohim is giving me my wages. Zebulun, Elohim has endowed me with a good gift. And my husband shall dwell with me. Joseph, Yah shall add to me. And Benjamin, you shall have this son. The beautiful story. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it is back when they were naming the sons, but we do see the references of the naming of each son. For example, Benjamin and Joseph, that Yah shall add to me. We see that in when he is born, there in that account of the wives. But I don't know if each one, not saying I don't know if it's true or not, I don't know because I didn't look exactly in each of those verses when the boys are named. But it's a beautiful, beautiful image, and I can't take credit for that. I was listening to Curtis Reed earlier, and he had echoed that, and it's been stated many different times. I mean, you can find it on the internet as well. But I'll paste it in here. I just want to be clear, I did not come up with that on my own. Okay, so as we'll wrap up, I have a couple questions here in verse 50. Let me just see. And so just a question, too, that when you said about the blessing, we see the traditional blessing here in, where is it? Over the sons, verse 20 of 48. I skipped that, but 48:20 has the traditional blessing of may you be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Just wanted to reference that. So if you notice that in the Erev Shabbat service that MTOI has put together, this is the origin here. And then we have a question. I see your hand, Raymond. Hoffman family, 50:20. Actually, Jonathan Thompson asked about this too, so we'll have two comments in one verse. Hoffman family asked, what does it mean when he performed 7 days of mourning for his father? What would that have entailed? So everyone will have a comment there. It's a beautiful image of the Shiva practice, even before it's named. So the traditional Jewish practice of sitting Shiva, So mourning for 7 days. I'm not going to go into all of the details of what it is, but it could have entailed, variety of things of putting away business, focusing on his father. I'll mention just briefly in Jewish homes during sitting Shiva, they will actually cover up the mirrors, so not to see the reflection of themselves, and focus on themselves for that week, focus on others. And it's very customary for family and friends to bring food, and then you actually will go and spend a day, not a whole day, but you will visit the family on one of the 7 days. So it's possible here. Again, it doesn't say that this is, you have to do this, but I think it's pretty beautiful picture here, and possibly one of the origins of that practice. And then Jonathan said in verse 20 of chapter 50, can Yosef's understanding of emunah be clearly seen in the statement, and can we pray with this hope when others intend evil against us, keeping in mind Yahweh's purposes as he sees fit? He causes and allows things to happen according to his purposes. It says, verse 20, and you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is this day, to keep a great many people alive. Yeah, that is absolute emunah, absolute trust and control that whatever others might intend for Yahweh's purposes, the king's purposes are always for good, and we must cling to those purposes. So even though it might not appear, again, appearances, what it looks like, we can definitely pray with this hope that whatever happens to us, it will be for good if we stay in his good standing, right? In his favor in his eyes, and walk in the righteousness that has been laid before us. So yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. I think it's a beautiful way to bring that to end. That even we see that with Yeshua, right? Forgive them, Father, they do not know what they do. Because the evil intended to him, right, came for good. It had to happen. It's part of the plan to keep a great many people alive. So even a connection there, possibly. To keep all of us alive, to make all of us alive. And the fullness of the nations, to bring it back full circle, to come, to make them alive in one, the 12 tribes, standing before our Father. And don't you know, it says, Yeshua says, you
Shalom. I just wanted to share a little thing about the names and the lists of names, and that is there's lots of these lists, and like for example the different places that they stopped in the wilderness, and it goes and it gives a sequence of these names. Also the Toledoth Noach, the generations of Noach, and how the names add up there, and it's interesting to see how these things can seem to tell a story. But we have something interesting missing from the list that's commonly shared, and I would agree that this is the common way that when people share about this. You won't usually hear this perspective that I'm about to share, and that is that all of the sons were named by their mothers, yes, by the wives, specifically, not just necessarily the one who gave birth to them, as we see that Rachel named the sons that came from the maidservant that she gave as wife to Yaakov, and Leah likewise got to name the son. They were counted as their sons in a way. Very interesting thing, really, that happens with Binyamin, because Binyamin was not the name given to him by his mother. If we recall, if we remember, the name given to him by his mother was Ben-Oni. And it was not Binyamin. It was not son of the right hand or son of the south. It was son of my suffering, son of my anguish, son of my pain. And this is fascinating because the other boys, the other sons, don't get two names, but he does. And so if we accept the idea that there's a story in these names, then I think that adds even more beauty and even more depth to the story that's told here. If we can plug that in and see that, Elohim did give to Yisrael the promised son, and that he was a son, it was not only the son of being at the right hand, but also he came in order to serve. He came in order to suffer, and really, there's that that idea that the suffering is integral to the redemption and integral to the process, and really just even the overall plan of how to redeem the whole universe from the fact that evil has been allowed, is that there's a price to be paid for that. And so just another element there to throw in to remember that if we're seeing the story in those names, that there's some depth there we don't want to miss. And
Amen. Always helpful. Always in the Toldot from Adam to Noach that Raymond was referring to, a similar name meaning story, and I think it brings it really full circle, this idea of the one who came to suffer. We know our Messiah, Yeshua, and that price. So from Adam to Noach, we see the meaning of the names put together. Say, man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed Elohim shall come down teaching. His death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest.
Hello, everyone. I thought I'd surprise everybody. And for all those of you that were guessing, the color today was red. Anyway, just wanted to wave. I'm feeling, it's rough when I talk and I cough, but I really appreciate David stepping in tonight. Let me shut this off. We don't really need this video going forever. I just thought I'd come in and do a little surprise pop in here. There we go. Anyway, I just want to step in here real quick. It's almost 10 o'clock. I wanted to thank David and Robert and Raymond and the rest of you for all. I didn't get to hear the whole study, but a great job, I'm sure. And just please keep me in prayer. We're still not sure what's causing the cough, although I am on an antibiotic now, so hopefully that will help knock this thing out. And we'll get that worked out. A quick reminder that we have. Sorry, see, of course I'm talking. Someone's texting me. Okay. Quick reminder of upcoming things. I will be putting the Passover website page together on our website soon. And so I got the contract finally, and so hopefully I'll get that done this week. And okay, let's see. Some people saying I got a gray shirt, no MTOI on it. Somebody else said they had purple. I get it. Okay, but anyway, I just wanted to come in real quick and just get to say hi. And I do miss doing this. I'm sorry I didn't get to do it again today. I just really wasn't feeling up to it. At night, the coughing tends to be worse, and so I wasn't able to finish it up. But anyway, we have finished the book of Bereshit, which is exciting. Next week we start Shemot. We start Exodus. I hope to be doing the study then. Let's see. Rabbi Tom, I do want to talk to you if you are. I tried to call you earlier today, but your voicemail is full. So I couldn't leave you a voicemail. So if you can give me a call, actually, after we close the study, that would be good. And Marty, if you're still in here, that MyCloud big thing that we bought, the EX4100, one of my bays has failed, and I don't know what to do. So I'd like to be able to talk to you about that after I talk to Rabbi Tom. I'll be quick. Okay, so Marty, if it's okay, I'll call you right after I talk to Rabbi Tom. All right, Rabbi Tom, are you still in here? Can you give me a call when we're done? Let me just make sure to get that. Okay, I'm waiting for him to type. All right, well, anyway, again, there we go, great. Okay, so again, I want to thank David for coming, being available to come in and do the study. I assume we'll do 1 to 2. Did David do a great job? I assume David did a great job. Great job, David. Okay, awesome. And Dawn, I did talk to Bill, your realtor, today, and I also talked to Nate. Absolutely fabulously excited for you in your new house. Awesome. Can't wait to see it once you guys move in. Okay, the Rebbitzin and I looked at a house today as well, so please keep that in prayer. We may go ahead and try to buy something in the Cleveland area. All right. Okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up here. Did we have anybody close yet? No. Let's have somebody come up and close the study.
Just the one. Can everybody hear me? Oh. Yeah, Abba, we come and thank you just once again for who you are and for all that you do for us. We're so grateful for tonight's Torah study and that we can apply what we've studied to our lives. We thank you for this leadership, and we thank you for what you're doing in this family. And be with all of us as we go our separate ways for the rest of the week so that we may apply what we've learned here and meditate on all of this. And as we long for another Shabbat, which is right around the corner, and we're thankful. Be with all of us, be with Rabbi leadership as they have to move and do things, and be with their health and all of the prayer requests, and bring us back again soon, where we can fellowship and give you all the glory and praise, and that you deserve it. We thank you. And amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, excellent job, Jonathan. Thank you. All right, everyone, just a reminder, we are also in the process of looking at a property potentially for feasts. I did mention that, I think, on Shabbat. And but we're going to need some people that want to maybe partner up with us on that. And if you want, we can talk about that. Come to the general session this coming Sunday night. Okay, Sunday night general session. We're going to talk about this new feast site property. I may even show a link or show a short video of the property and that kind of thing. So that's Sunday night, 8 p.m. Also, Leaders is this week on Sunday. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the countdown. The countdown kind of works down from 10, and then when it gets to 0, of course, we close the room. Okay, Steve, I look forward to talking about it when you get here. We have quite a few people visiting. Also, who's going to be the family moving here in January? We need to line up our January family and our February family. I'm only kidding. We're taking applications for January and February. Olivia and Janet, the Hoffmans wish it would be them. Well, maybe someday. Okay, the Sullivans. Okay, Aaron Sullivan might be here in January or February. That might be nice. All right. Well, I shouldn't say it might be nice. It would be great. It might be January or February, but it'd be very good. Stephanie White, we are the March family. Okay, good. Got to make sure one a month, you know. Okay, and it is my plan to be doing Shemot next week. So I'll be doing the Torah study next week. Yah willing, and my cough holding together and all that kind of stuff. For those of you that don't know, I spent most of Saturday dealing with some terrible coughing where I couldn't really breathe. I tried to get through the sermon, and hopefully it went okay on Saturday. Saturday night, I went into the ER about midnight or so, and had a whole bunch of tests done and everything, and so I'm hoping to get some results. White blood count was a little high, so I was fighting something. Okay. Nancy and Mommy, Rabbi, may I call you tomorrow? Yes, you may. What time? Let's see, I have appointments tomorrow. Let me see what time would be good. Tomorrow, you can call me after 1 o'clock, between 1 and, let's say between 1 and 3. I only have a brief time in between meetings tomorrow. Between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay? I'm just trying to see what else I was missing on the screen while I was checking my... If you can't reach me tomorrow, I should be more reachable on Friday. I got a bunch of appointments on Thursday also. So Wednesday and Thursday will be a little busy for me. I've got some doctor appointments and some other appointments. Have you had a chest x-ray? I had a full CAT scan. They said I've got some fluid in the bottom lining of my lungs. That's part of the problem, but they're not sure. Okay? Did they find any cats in the scan? I didn't get a full report back yet, Raymond. I'll let you know. Okay, where was I up to in the count? 5? All right. Excuse me. So the coughing has actually been a little bit better under control. Okay? Up to today. We're looking forward to the renovating of the office side of the building so that if anybody comes in January, we hope to have, I expect the building should be finished and fully renovated sometime in January. It'll be exciting. And then we'll announce an official grand opening, so to speak. By the way, it will be Saturday, January 12th, let's say, would be our 7-year anniversary with Beth Shalom here in Chattanooga. And so we're looking forward to that. Seems like it's got to have been longer than that, but it's only been 7 years. So we've been here in Chattanooga for 7 years. Actually, as of December 27th, in 9 days, we'll be here 7 years. Okay? So January 12th, that's Saturday, we may do something for celebrating our 7 years. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to wait for us to have a grand opening. We'll see how we can do it. Right, like an open house date, exactly. So I don't know yet when they'll be. The Hoffmans, are you recommending January 20th? Is that what you're looking for? Okay, Erin might want to be our secretary. Okay, that's something we could talk about, Erin, when you get here. We'll have to see. All right. Let's continue the countdown here and get ready to close up. All right, love you guys. Appreciate everybody's prayers. Appreciate David for running the study tonight and those who supported him in the effort. I heard Raymond a little bit at the end there, so I know he was active. I'm sure Robert was very helpful, as well as all the rest of you that participated. Like I said, I really didn't get to listen to the study. I will listen to it on archive. But I will, I really appreciate everybody here. I was trying to get some things done, looking at a new house possibility, as well as convalescing my vocal cords and this cough. And so I do appreciate these things. Anyway, blessings to everyone.